This is Hearts of Iron 4, a grand strategy game released by Paradox Studios back in 2016. However, Hearts of Iron 4 has seen a very lengthy, in fact ongoing development now 5 to 6 years later. Hearts of Iron 4 also has a very interesting and detailed modding system that can take you back to World War I or forward to the modern day. Of course, the primary game is set during World War II, and indeed this deeply complex political, military, social, and economic simulation strategy game from Paradox Studios really does live up to the grand strategy expectation. Players of games like Humankind and Civilization will have fun with a title like this, while players who are used to Paradox's more grand strategy, Europa Universalis, Victoria, etc., will feel right at home with Hearts of Iron 4. In this video, I'm going to take you through Hearts of Iron 4. Is it worth it? Now, some years after its release. What about its DLC? And ultimately, my thoughts and opinions on Hearts of Iron as a keen strategy gamer and somebody who has this game right near the top of their most played list on Steam. Although it's been a hot minute, let's talk Hearts of Iron 4. Naturally, there's a lot to unpack. Let's start with what Hearts of Iron 4 is, to give you a feel of whether you'll enjoy it or not, if you're not already familiar. Hopefully, if you are, I'll be teaching you some new things along the way. Hearts of Iron 4 is a grand strategy game, and you can see by the level of detail on your screen at the moment, with just these events and decisions alone, let alone managing my military, looking at all of the different regions in the world, you get the feeling it's got a lot of detail to it, and it can be a little daunting. Indeed, I was daunted by Hearts of Iron when I first stumbled upon it as well. It is a fantastic strategy simulation game, and I think it lives up to both grand strategy and simulation through that real depth of detail. Take the military system, for example. As one, but small example in a much wider system. You use your population, indeed scaled off the real population of the country you're playing, because of course in Hearts of Iron 4 you can play any country that existed in the game's starting periods of 1939 or the 1936 earlier starting condition. Either way, it sets you in the few years, or indeed moments, before World War II kicks off. You can choose to play historically aligned, where the AI will favour its historical preferences. The blending of socialism, of communism, or fascism, or indeed Axis versus Allies. Whoever you want to play, and whosever side you want to stand on, Hearts of Iron 4 will let you do it. Of course, you can also break the mold, and there are lots of options that I'll discuss a little bit later in the video to help you do that. But rest assured, if you don't want to play a historically accurate experience, you don't need to. Indeed, I quite like to start as a neutral nation like Portugal here, and slowly convert them to another ideology, flip them, and allow them to join the Axis, or the Comintern or the Allies, entirely up to you. Either way, Hearts of Iron 4's military system is very detailed. You have your land units, your air units, your sea, and you can add them all into different fleets and armies, train them, kit them up with equipment that you construct in your military factories across all of your regions, alongside building up all other kinds of infrastructure that can help your units resupply, move faster, you can build forts to hunker down, or set aggressive battle plans as you justify your war goals and take over your nearest neighbors. And that's just the military. Of course, as I already mentioned, there's a deep geopolitical system here too. Not only do the real world factions and countries, all of them basically that existed in the pre-World War II era, exist in Hearts of Iron 4 as well, but not just that, of course you can create your own, blend and merge, build relations with certain countries and hinder them with others, conduct grand battle plans, spy on the enemies. Really, seriously, Hearts of Iron 4 is the grand political strategy game that World War II, or really human history buffs as a whole, will deeply, deeply enjoy. On the politics fronts, as you've seen many times in this video, there are, of course, ideological trees. You can assign government advisors. There's, of course, a research tree, like you can see here, where I can research a whole load of technologies, from industry to military to civil, societal, and everywhere in between. Hearts of Iron 4 really does give you the ultimate sandbox experience for any historian or World War II/military buff. But moreover, there's more to it than that. There is also a somewhat deep, if not a little underutilized, trade and resources system. Each territory has, of course, different resources available to it, from oil to aluminium to everywhere in between. As you can see here, it's not just the resources that change. Really, customization is your biggest friend in Hearts of Iron 4. Take a look, this is the start of a game. I can select one of the major powers from 1936 or 39 and choose to jump straight in, or I can choose another country, like I do here, and literally take my pick. I can customize the game rules to strengthen or weaken certain main civs, countries, I should say, or indeed tinker with their political persuasions. Let's say I wanted a communist New Zealand, I could set up a game to do just that. And as I mentioned earlier, of course, there are also extensive mods involved in Hearts of Iron 4, so if World War II isn't quite your thing, you could choose the Millennium Dawn scenario and start in the world 2000 or 2017, which, when the mod was new, was actually the go-to. Take a look at the world leaders of the day. Some are still familiar, most are not. Either way, you can see here that not only am I limited, it sounds stupid to say limited when I'm talking about a game like Hearts of Iron 4, which is so incredibly open and sandboxy, but if you don't like being limited to World War II, the modding game is absolutely yours. Here you can see I'm jumping into a Millennium Dawn game, playing as modern day China. It's a good time, but there are more good times to be had than that, so let's bounce out of Beijing and back to this, World War II Portugal. Here we are. Right, so the next thing that I want to talk about is DLC, because the Hearts of Iron experience, if you haven't already got a feel for it, as you can tell, is very multifaceted and incredibly detailed, and the DLC adds to that even more. My full DLC recommendations would probably be best put in a separate video, but I do want to go over the DLC packs here and just give some quick recommendations and quick thoughts on them. As you can see, there have been a range of different DLC packs released for Paradox Studios' wonderful Hearts of Iron 4, and they are still coming, which is another great thing, and another reason why I could absolutely rally my support behind Hearts of Iron 4 this year, years after its release. Anyway, the DLC. To date, my favourite packs, and the one that I would recommend the most, is probably Waking the Tiger. As you might suggest, it largely focuses around the more complex addition of mechanics to countries like China and that Asian front. In particular, new focus trees, those political decision trees for communist China, nationalist China, the warlords, a whole load of other places too. It adds a whole load of interesting dynamics to the game that I won't delve too deep into, including some border conflicts. And of course, the two major Axis powers also got alternative history branches. I love those in particular. So here's looking at you, Germans and Japanese, if you'd like to play an alternate history change, and lots of changes to the political system and the battlefield too. I think that DLC and the Man the Guns DLC both provide huge upgrades to the base game. Man the Guns granted a little bit more towards the sort of naval building features of the game, so if you like those and you find the base ones to be a little limited, which they are in comparison to infantry battles in particular, then I can also recommend Man the Guns as a pretty good pickup. But honestly, by and large, most of the DLCs are pretty good, and you can get a feel for what they're worth looking on Steam as well, just to kind of gauge what you should be buying, where you should be buying it. But by and large, I would recommend the base Hearts of Iron 4 experience to new players, and then as you become more adept and experienced with it, particularly during sale periods where the DLC can go at least half price, if not more, then I'd recommend you maybe pick up DLC like Man the Guns, Waking the Tiger, or potentially, if you're feeling super spicy, you could also, of course, get what is, at the time of recording, the most recent DLC expansion, looking at a country I love, the Soviet Union. That's right, the No Step Back DLC that prioritized and reprioritized the Eastern Front of Europe in Hearts of Iron 4. Look, this concludes my Hearts of Iron 4 review video, and I wanted to leave you on this game creation screen again because I think it really brings together the story of Hearts of Iron 4 and what Hearts of Iron 4 really is. Is Hearts of Iron 4 still worth it this year, over 5 years after its initial release? Absolutely. Cross my heart, absolutely. I haven't even played every country in the game, and I don't know if I ever will. There are just so many, of course, because this is essentially the world from the 1930s. My goodness, it's a very enjoyable grand strategy military experience. It will keep you on your toes, and it is challenging, and there is a steep learning curve to the Hearts of Iron games. Like many other Paradox strategy games, they are not for newbies, but any newbie could pick them up and successfully play through them, and I say that from experience. I was one newbie way back on the 6th of July 2016, and I loved Hearts of Iron 4 then, and I still do now for what it's worth. Thank you very much for watching this Hearts of Iron video. If you'd like to see more Hearts of Iron coverage, including the newest DLC pack, No Step Back, then please do consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.